Who's the best elite anti-large infantry? That's what we're going to find out today, but we can't do this in the conventional who's the best style of these videos, because having an anti-large infantry fight another anti-large infantry doesn't really give us an idea of who's good at killing the big boys. So we're going to have a mini Olympics of sorts, pitting these top tier anti-large units against some of the best large units in the game, and we'll see who's best at getting the job done. So all these units will be tested against a top tier cavalry, monstrous infantry and single entity monster, which will be in the cavalry department, the Skull Crushers. In the monstrous infantry department, the Butchers of Kalkengard, because they're a tougher version of Minotaurs with regeneration. And for the big boy version, there can be only one choice, it's a Dread Saurian. The winner of the Cavalry and Monstrous Infantry contests will be determined by who can get the job done the fastest, with the single entity Dread Saurian test being determined by who can do the most damage to the Dread Saurian before they probably rout, but maybe somebody can beat them. Now, if at any point in these tests you feel like they're not fair or I could have done them better, feel free to jot down your thoughts on a piece of paper in real life, pop them in an envelope, and then just put them straight in the bin. That'd be great, thank you. Alright, let's meet the contestants. In alphabetical faction order, for the Dark Elves, the Blackguard of Nagarond. For the Dwarfs, the Dragonback Slayers, who yes, are a regiment of renown, but they're within the price range of all these other units, whereas the normal Dwarf Slayers are a bit cheap to be in here, and I thought people would love to see Dwarfs and Slayers go at it, so I threw the Dragonbacks in. For Grand Cathay, it's the Celestial Dragon Guard. For the High Elves, it's the Phoenix Guard. For the Lizard Boys, it's the Temple Guard. Why are all these units called guards? For the Skaven, I'm throwing in the Council Guard, another regiment of renown unit. Again, I thought people would like to see how they perform here, as they are a pretty popular and commonly used unit. For the Johnny Birdman faction, it's the Chosen of Tzeentch. The Vampire Coast bringing more guard to the table with the Depth Guard with halberds. And Warhammer 1's OG finest for the Warriors of Chaos, the Chosen with great halberds. Or halberds. I nearly said great weapons, alright? Shut up. Okay, we're going to kick off with the cavalry test, and we're going to do this in alphabetical order of our contestants as well, so as not to give away the final time winner. Starting off with the Blackguard here, they've taken the charge pretty well. They're very much your standard meat and potatoes kind of unit. Nothing really fancy about them, no USPs, just good old solid anti-large, good strength, good toughness, doing some good work on these here, taking a fair bit of damage themselves though in the process. And like most of the units in this competition, they do have a charge defense and charge reflection as well, so that's going to help them do some extra damage to these charging cavalries. And of course, we are charging the cavalry into a really bad matchup for them, so they are pretty much guaranteed to lose. But of course, it's all about the speed at which the infantry can take out the cavalry. And in this case, it's 1 minute and 1 second. That's the moment of engagement until the last unit of cavalry died. That's how long it took the Blackguard to boil them, mash them, and stick them in a stew. So that's the bar to beat. What are you doing? I kept pushing my microphone away. So with the Slayers, I wasn't sure whether to charge them in to the cavalry or just have them stand still, because they do actually have a charge defense, but they also do have a pretty good charge bonus for an infantry, so I thought I'd charge them first of all and see how it went, and it turns out it goes pretty damn badly for them, as they do actually get wiped out by the Skull Crushers. Every last brave little dwarf, like this fella, look at him go, he's ready to oh, he got mowed down, okay, bless his cotton socks, he tried, oh, he's not wearing any socks. So yeah, Dragonback Slayers unable to beat Skull Crushers if you charge them into them. What about if they stand still and use their charge defense though? Well, they're certainly going to take less damage because the Skull Crushers don't get their big 55 charge bonus, but the Slayers also don't get their charge bonus, so it's a bit of a trade-off. Probably a good one for the Slayers as they don't have armor on. They need to really work to not take too much damage. And would you believe it, using their charge defense actually saves the Slayers. They still take a massive pounding and are nearly dead, but they are actually now able to beat the Skull Crushers in 1 minute 25, so not quite as good as the Blackguard, but pretty good. Now onto the Celestial Dragon Guard. They had a similar issue to the Slayers, as they had a bit of a question mark with formation attack. Should it be on? Should it be off? Well, I tried it both ways to see which way would make them perform better. And with formation attack on, you can see the results here. 3 wins, but one of them they actually lost. Although the Skull Crushers are going to crumble away just afterwards, so it gives them a time of 1 minute 23 seconds, a little less than the Slayers. And with formation attack off, it was pretty much the same deal, to be honest. They got the job done, although there was some wavering from their units, so pretty close to losing a couple of times, but they got the job done in 1 minute 19 seconds, so not really any difference. I guess because the cavalry is engaging the whole unit, it didn't really matter. Now to the Phoenix Guard, one unit that is typically regarded as one of the strongest in the game, and rightly so. They are an incredibly tough anti-large infantry. They do have martial prowess, which gives them a little boost above other units in this competition, and one of the units I definitely thought would be a contender to win this whole thing. And how quickly did they get rid of the Skull Crushers? Well, pretty much the same as the Blackguard, 1 minute 2 seconds. And the health the Blackguard had left at the end of their fight is pretty much the same as the health here for the Phoenix Guard, so a very similar performance from those two. What about the reptile men then? The lizard boys taking the charge on the chin very nicely. They're very sturdy. Look how many lizards didn't go flying everywhere. None from this unit. That's pretty damn impressive. Only 3 from this unit maybe. Only 1 from this unit. Oh, that's embarrassing. He's the one. No one wants to be that guy. The lads are going to take the piss out of him later for being the one that fell over. But a very strong performance from the Temple Guard. They are a very tough infantry. A little more weapon strength than other units in this competition perhaps, but less melee attack maybe. Ultimately, it doesn't really hurt their performance though, and they maybe end the fight with a little more health than other units. They're able to get the job done though in 1 minute and 6 seconds. So we can notice so far that all the units are pretty much performing the same. What about the Rat Men then? The other Regiment of Renown, the Council Guard. They do have the luxury, like our other Regiment of Renown, the Slayers, that they are unbreakable, which does give them a slight advantage in a way, but maybe not so much in these tests here, because this is about how quickly they can kill things. So being unbreakable isn't really going to help them there. They're doing okay so far. They do have a pretty big unit size as well at 160, whereas most units in this competition are like 80 to 100 men in a unit. But the Council Guard have the downside that their damage output isn't fantastic. They don't have a great deal of weapon strength or melee attack, so damage output isn't quick with these rattos. And that is proven here in this test, as it takes them 1 minute 22 to get the job done. So slower than everyone else, like the Slayers, the 2 Regiment of Renown, the slowest units. On to the Tzeentch Chosen then with their halberds. Let's see how they do, taking the big charge well as they have that barrier to protect them, protecting them for the most dangerous seconds of a charge as well, as a charge bonus lasts 13 seconds and degrades over time. If you take away those first 3 or 4 seconds, you're taking away the most dangerous few seconds when the melee attack and weapon strength is higher. These Chosen halberds having no problem getting through these Skull Crushers. They have an advantage in this fight as well, having magical attacks against the Skull Crushers who have a physical resistance which they're not going to be able to use. So a pretty big advantage for the Chosen in this one. And they're proving that here by beating the Skull Crushers in a mere 42 seconds and still having plenty of health left to carry on and make themselves useful. So they're now in the top spot at number 1. Can anyone do better? We've got the Depth Guard and the regular Chosen left. So let's see what the Depth Guard can do. They're going to take the charge on the chin, and they're all going to go flying. They should have bent their knees. You can't stand up straight and take a charge, dummies. But the Depth Guard have a few tricks of their own. They do have the Hunger, which gives them healing while they're in melee, so that's going to help them out. Although it's not going to help them do any more damage. However, they do have Frenzy as well, and that will help them do a good bit more damage. And it really does, as it allows them to put away the Skull Crushers in a mere 49 seconds. Not quite as good as the Tzeentch Chosen, but still pretty damn solid. What about Warhammer 1's toughest anti-large unit then, the Chosen with halberds? These were the king for a long time, but they've been overshadowed by all the new units that have come along in Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 3. Do they still got it though? They're very much like the Blackguard, just being very simple, strong and tough. They've got a lot of melee defense, melee attack, weapon strength, armor. Ultimately, they show that they still do have it pretty damn well as they get the job done in 46 seconds. So taking second place, not quite as quick as the Tzeentch Chosen, but very, very close, faster than the Depth Guard and everybody else. So that's all the tests against the Skull Crushers. Here it is, all laid out in a ranking. We're going to look at this at the end, though, briefly, and work out who's the best from the results of all the tests. Let's move on now, then, to the Monstrous Infantry tests. The Butchers of Kalkengard, a pretty tanky unit as it does have that shield and the regeneration, but also capable of some good damage output. But these 2 units trading pretty even damage coming from that charge. But we're of course all about the time on this one. It's a fight the Minotaurs are guaranteed to lose against most of these anti-large units as they are all the best. But who can get it done quicker? Yep. There's a flying elf and now a dead elf. My favorite kind of elf. But all in all, this whole fight, it's going to take the Blackguard 1 minute 32 to get rid of the Minotaurs. Now that's a new starting point. It shouldn't be compared to the Skull Crusher times, but so far that is the time to beat. Now with the Slayers, I tested it both ways again, but I'm only going to show you the way that was the best, and as you can see, that is the charging way. So more damage to be done if you charge your Slayers rather than brace them in this fight, and the Slayers do have a trick up their sleeve, or at least they would do if they had any sleeves. They seem to lack a lot of necessary tubular clothing, I've come to realize from this video, but the Slayers cause fire damage, and guess what? The Butchers of Kalkengard are weak to fire because of their regeneration, so an extra 20% damage being done to the Minotaurs, that's a pretty huge advantage for the Slayers, and it's going to show itself because they're going to get this job done in a mere 40 seconds. So very quick for the Slayer boys, but we do have to acknowledge that this is a bit of an anomaly. It just so happens that I chose a good Monstrous Infantry that is a good target for the Slayers. We'll consider that in the end results. Oh, and the brace test version took 1 minute 2 seconds. Now to the Celestial Dragon Guard for Cathay. Again, formation attack or no formation attack? Well, in this case, no formation attack is the way to go. And it's a fairly big difference, which I'll talk about in a sec, but that's kind of interesting because the entire unit is engaged, much like it was in the Skull Crusher fight, so I expected it to be a similar result, that the time would be pretty close and not really that different. But there was actually a fairly big gap between the times, so in the formation attack version, it took them 3 minutes to get through the Minotaurs. Whereas in this non-formation attack version, it took them 2 minutes 13, but they did lose one of the fights, so there's that as well, which makes it a little more weird. But yeah, Celestial Dragon Guard, a little slow in this fight. What about the Phoenix Guard then? Let's see if the High Elf boys can stand up to the Minotaurs here. They did pretty well against the Skull Crushers. Will they do as well here? They get knocked around all over the place. But it's hard to say how well anyone's going to do in this test because the numbers are a little more all over the place. So far we've had a 1:32, a 40 seconds, and a 2 minutes 14. And we can also remember that the Phoenix Guard had about the same performance as the Black Guard in the first test, so will they do the same here, getting around a 1:30-ish? Well, no, they won't. They'll do better. They're coming away with 1 minute 12. So a good bit faster than the Black Guard, way faster than the Celestial Dragon Guard, but not up there with the Slayers. How about the Temple Guard then? The tough boys against the tough boys. Who can be the toughest boy? Well, quite simply, the Lizardmen are of course going to win, but they're not going to do it terribly quickly at 2 minutes 19. That's slower than the Celestial Dragon Guard, which is kind of strange given that there's a fairly big price difference between the two units. Over to the Ratties to see what they can do. Storm Vermin, Council Guard. They've got a lot of numbers. You'd think they'd be able to surround entities quite well and put lots of stabs on them. We didn't really see that in the first test, so I wonder if we'll see it here. Doesn't really look like it. Don't know if there's any case to charge them, but probably not. They really want to negate the charge bonus of a big bad unit like the Minotaurs. But I'm going to save us a big chunk of time here because it's going to take a whopping 3 minutes and 3 seconds for the Storm Vermin to get through the Minotaurs, and they're going to get nearly pounded into the ground in the process. Again, the slower damage output of Storm Vermin probably hurting them quite a lot in these tests because they have to keep fighting Minotaurs for longer. Now to the previous tests. Number 1, the Chosen of Tzeentch. Can they beat the Slayer's speed run of 40 seconds? It's a tall order. They've got that shield protecting them again, tanking up those first few hits. Nearly got a quarter of the Minotaur's health gone already, so some pretty quick damage on these big boys. A lot of them been sent flying though, so they got to regroup and reform the unit. Most of these fights though, well on their way to bringing the Minotaurs down to half health. And that could be the key to getting a speedy victory in these kind of fights. The more damage you can put on quicker, the bigger leadership penalties you're going to put on the enemy unit, and the quicker you're going to potentially rout them, which is why the Slayers did so well. That extra fire damage really allowed them to stack up the penalties quick, and away the Minotaurs went. The Chosen of Tzeentch, though, not able to get it done quite that quickly. Still managed to get 56 seconds, though, so still very quick, very nice. Should be taking second place, but let's see what the Depth Guard and the regular Chosen have to say about it. Depth Guard first up. Can they take the charge? Oh, they take it pretty well. Not too many of them have gone flying. The Depth Guard do have the downside that their unit size is a little bit smaller than most. It's only like 60 compared to the 80 or 100 of the other units in this competition. But like I mentioned earlier, they do have that frenzy, so their damage output may be a little better than most, as they do get some extra melee attack and weapon strength, which is, of course, what you need to kill anything quick. And quick is the word for the Depth Guard, as they managed to get the job done in 50 seconds, so faster than the Chosen with halberds. Not quite Slayer level speed, but very nice for the Depth Guard. Can the regular old Chosen halberds do any better? Let's find out. Big old charge coming in. Not too many Chosen flying around. They are big, heavy boys. They do have a slightly bigger unit size than the Depth Guard, which is always going to be helpful. So maybe they can outdo them, but most likely not the Slayers. We shall see, though. They've done a good bit of damage so far. Nearly got them down to half health already, so not wasting any time. put in a lot of damage on the big boys quick. And they are going to get the Minotaurs routed away with relatively good haste, but not quite as fast as the other unit. It's going to take them 1 minute 10 to get rid of the Minotaurs, so that puts them as the 4th fastest unit in this particular contest. So a little bit of a fight on our hands to see who's the best here. Here's the rankings for this little competition. Let's move on now to the final test then, the Dread Saurian. A fight that they're most definitely not going to win, but who can do the most damage to the Dread Saurians before they rout and run away? Reluctantly up first, it's the Blackguard. Let's see how well they can survive. Gonna get knocked around all over the place by the Dread Saurian, no doubt. Now, normally against single entities, you'd be able to get around them and surround them, and thus be able to attack them from all angles at the back where there's less melee defense mainly, and well, that would give you a good shot at beating the monster. But because the Dread Saurian is so damn big and does move around a lot and does knock everything all over the place, this can be harder to do. You can see them slightly surrounding it a little bit though, getting some shots in the side and the back. And that's important as we're going to be measuring how much health these Dread Saurians have left once the fights are over, because in most cases the units are going to rout, right? The Dread Saurian costs twice as much as most of these units, so we're not necessarily expecting them to win here, but murderous prowess going off for the Blackguard here. I think that's the first time in this competition, so they're going to get some extra damage from that. Some of them have routed already though, and their Dread Saurians aren't really going to be taking any more damage. But by the time the Blackguard have all been routed, the monsters come away with these numbers in health. So sitting between about 3,000 and 5,000. I've rounded them all to the nearest 100 to make them a little easier to look at, but that gives you an idea of their performance. Now to the Slayers, who did best in this test when they were stood still bracing. They literally lost like half their health when I charged them in, so it wasn't great for them. They survived much better bracing first. But some of these Slayer units getting a pretty good surround on their Dread Saurian, and despite them not getting their charge bonus, they still have pretty good weapon strength and melee attack anyway, so they're a good little damage dealer. They will have the advantage in this test as well that they are unbreakable, so they will go a bit longer than everyone else and they won't rout and run away, so that is an advantage in this test. By the time the last Slayer falls, the Dread Saurians end up with these health amounts at the end of it. Not quite as good as the Blackguard, you can see ranging between about 5,000 and 8,000. Hard to say what's good yet until we do a few more tests. So you're up, Celestial Dragon Guard. Good luck. You've been the worst performer so far probably, so yeah. Try not to embarrass yourselves. So far, so bad, so not looking great for them. They're all over the place. This is the non-formation attack version as well, because they did do a little bit better, not by much. But as you can see here, they're all looking towards the monster, trying to get in on it and get a stab on it. Whereas if they're in formation attack, they all just stand there in the formation, still probably facing the wrong way even, which might help them survive a little bit longer, but they won't be doing any damage, so not much use in this test. And looking at the health remaining of the Dread Saurians, we can see that they did not do as well as the previous two units, barely getting out of 5-digit numbers. They got one 4-digit number in the 7,000, which is this unit you can see here. Not quite sure why it survived so much longer, but that extra survival gave it more time to do damage, thus it got its Saurian down lower. Alright, Phoenix Guard, I had high hopes for you. Let's see what you can do. Getting a charge, not too bad, not too many men flying around all over the place compared to some of these other ones. It seems like some of the charge animations are a bit more disruptive on the Saurian than others. But you can see the poison taking effect on my units in all these fights, the little skinks on the back of the Dread Saurian with their poison darts. That's making life a little bit harder for all of my units to do damage, as it will reduce their damage output a bit. But I think Phoenix Guard may be a little bit tougher than some of these other units so far. They've got a little more staying power. That martial prowess gives extra melee defense. That's going to help them survive a little. It's only a small boost, but it's better than nothing. And the Phoenix Guard do put up some damn good damage while hanging in there pretty well. They even get some routing from one of the Saurians. Can they rout it off fully? They're pretty close to the end themselves, pretty beaten up. Can they be the first unit to rout a Dread Saurian in this competition? Well, yes, they can, sir. And not only that, they rout 3 of them. So that's going to put the Phoenix Guard in the top spot in this competition. Here's the results in a few numbers and a bunch of routs. Very nice from the Phoenix Guard. Alright, now it's time for some lizard on lizard action, because reptiles can be sexy. Come on, some of you got with that malleable Argonian in Skyrim. I know you did. Anyway, back to the battle at hand. Temple Guard, one of the tougher units in this competition, plus still good damage, and that toughness is going to allow them to stay in the fight a bit longer in theory. And if you can stay in the fight longer, you can do more damage. So they might do pretty well here. We shall see. They get knocked around all over the place, mind, but so does everyone fighting a Dread Saurian. Unfortunately for the Temple Guard, they're not able to get any routs on the Dread Saurians, but they do some pretty good damage, putting up these numbers at the end, giving the Dread Saurians a pretty good run for their money. Not as good as the Phoenix Guard or Blackguard, but better than the Slayers and the Celestial Dragon Guard at least. Now to the Rattos once again, who are going to benefit like the Slayers from being unbreakable in this fight. That could really help them do some damage. However, as we know, their damage output isn't fantastic, and they're going to be poisoned, so it's going to be even worse. Maybe the high number of models in their unit, though, can get a good surround on this big old beastie boy and put some extra stabs on him. We shall see. Fast forward, and we see there is some pretty good damage on these Dread Saurians. So fair play to the Council Guard. They are absolutely destroyed, of course, but that's natural. They're going to fight down to the last rat. And although it did take a good old while, they got them down to these numbers, which is pretty damn good. Between 2,000 and 5,000, which is better than the Black Guard, so we'll put them in second place after the Phoenix Guard. On to our three final performers then, arguably the three strongest units in the other two tests. Starting with the Tzeentch Chosen Halberds here, absorbing that charge well once again, as the Dread Saurian doesn't attack often. Doesn't seem like it's going to get through that shield before its charge bonus wears off, so they're kind of negating that. Well, they do have that charge reflection as well, but it probably doesn't work too well on a Dread Saurian. That's more going to be more of a Cavalry and Monstrous Infantry useful trait. But the Tzeentch Halberds here are starting to feel the fight a little bit more in this one. They haven't really taken too much damage in the other two fights, but naturally can't really avoid the damage when you fight a Dread Saurian. Can they rout them though? That's the question. The Phoenix Guard beat 3 Dread Saurians, routed them away. Can the Chosen Halberds of Tzeentch do any better? Well, yes they fucking can. They're going to rout all of the bastards, thus putting them at the top spot of this competition, but we've still got the other Chosen and the Depth Guard to go. Can anyone else match this performance? Well, you're up, Depth Guard. Let's see what you can do. Will their bit of extra damage from Frenzy really help them out here? Will it give them enough to rout these big boys? Or will their smaller unit size really hurt them and they won't be able to last as long? Well, it turns out it's the latter. I'm going to guess their small unit size really hurts them here, as they're not able to get off as many attacks as some of the other units, and they don't really do a great deal of damage in this particular fight. They do have the luxury of being unroutable though, so they will fight to the bitter end before they start to crumble and disintegrate, but it doesn't greatly help their result numbers here. As you can see, it sits mostly between about 4,000 and 6,000, so Depth Guard on the lower end of the scoreboard in this one. The last test then, the Warriors of Chaos Chosen Halberds. Will they be able to put up a similar fight to the Chosen of Tzeentch, or will they be more like the Depth Guard and not very good? So far, they've taken a little bit of damage, haven't really done any yet to the Dread Saurian. It's going to start to rack up as they surround it as much as possible. Without the shield, though, like the Tzeentch boys, they are going to have to take the full brunt of the charge bonus, even though it's only a couple of attacks that'll probably really have the full weight of it. But this fight ends up a pretty damn close one, as both sides are close to routing when it gets near the end. There's one unit of Chosen that has broken, although it's beat the crap out of its Saurian. There's a Saurian that's broken on the end. There's some Chosen that's broken over here. It's going to be pretty damn close who wins more of these. 2 fights left, still going. Who's going to go? Oh, some cheeky shots from another Saurian there. Ends up routing those Chosen. Can they get this one done, though? Come on, Chosen boys. Get one more. Archaon wills it. Come up. You can't lose to the Phoenix Guard, although I think you already have, because I think they got 3. What an embarrassment. Oh, they're getting them wavering before they're wavering, and they are indeed going to get it done. So they managed to rout 2 Dread Saurians, giving them these performance numbers. Not as good as the Tzeentch Halberds, obviously, and not better than Phoenix Guard, surprisingly. So it's 3rd place for the Chosen Halberds, making the rankings of this contest look like this. And now if we combine them all together and see who had the most highest wins and such, we come out with this conclusion. Tzeentch Chosen are clearly the best, coming 1st, 3rd and 1st across the contests, and rightly so, as they are the most expensive unit by a couple of hundred. The Chosen came 2nd, 4th and 3rd, the Depth Guard came 3rd, 2nd and 7th, you get the idea. The only 2 you could swap around here is maybe the Celestial Guard and the Slayers. The Slayers did have that 1 1st place, but it was kind of an anomaly because they just had the right tool for the right job. But I gave them the 8th place because I think they would have placed higher than the Celestial Dragon Guard if they didn't have the weakness to fire advantage. So yeah, there we go. Hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Thanks to all these beautiful patrons who support this channel. If you're interested in becoming one yourself, you can check the link in the description to Patreon. I'll see you in the future.